All right, we are back on the record then.
Okay, let's get mentally prepared for this.
In this group, so we're going to be just a little bit more methodical about getting folks up here. So the first will be for victims AA and BB, and victim AA, correct? Okay. Which does have
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Leanne Hollingsworth, the mother of 2 victims. I want to start by thanking everyone involved in this case by bringing justice for us as victims. I want to thank all of the officers, first responders that helped us that day, especially the amazing Waukesha County Sheriff who was willing to transport me and my daughter to the hospital so quickly. If it wasn't for you, I'm not sure she'd be here today. Thank you to all of the staff at Children's Hospital for the amazing care for my daughter, and thank you to the Waukesha community. Thank you to the Good Samaritans who stayed with my daughter until I arrived, covered her with blankets to keep her warm, tried to comfort her. To all of you, I'm forever grateful. November 21st, 2021 is a day that will forever be etched in our minds and hearts as one of the worst days of our lives. On this day, you, Darrell Brooks, made the conscious decision to drive through the Waukesha Christmas parade and destroy the sense of security and safety of my family and thousands of others. My 2 daughters were doing what they love most, dancing in the parade with their teammates, when you destroyed that fun. My oldest daughter watched as her teammates went flying through the air, one of which was her sister. She had to make the frantic call to me to tell me that her sister was injured. Not only that, but because you, Darrell Brooks, continued driving and didn't stop, no one knew if the danger was gone or if they were still at risk. I remember the terrified phone call from a couple of blocks away, telling me to get inside the nearest building to stay safe. As a mother, I knew in that moment I couldn't leave my kids alone, so I had to make the choice to risk my own safety, run all the way down Main Street to get to them. I myself had to see the carnage of what you, Darrell Brooks, did to so many people. Those images will never leave me and will haunt me for the rest of my life. That view can only be described as that of a war scene, one which you knowingly caused. As we made our way down Main Street, I had no idea what to expect when I found my younger daughter. Mr. Brooks, you mentioned your young daughter during the trial. I want you to picture your daughter right now, your 8-year-old daughter, and I want you to imagine the fear and anger that you'd feel if a monster drove over your daughter and many others. I want you to picture finding your own daughter when I describe what I found. When I finally found our group, I had to run from person to person, lying on the ground to find my daughter. And when I finally did, she was unresponsive, couldn't open her eyes, was missing her white Christmas hat and headband and her shoe. Her sock was shredded with road rash on her foot. Her left leg was bent horribly in a way a leg shouldn't bend. Her head was immediately swelling in addition to the road rash across her face and the rest of her body and the blood coming from her mouth. It was over the next few days we learned of the extent of all of her injuries. Severe bleeding of the brain, which required emergency surgery, severe traumatic brain injury, multiple skull fractures, which required emergency surgery to repair, a severely broken femur, which required 2 surgeries to repair, a pelvic bone fracture, and I'm sure many others that I missed in the hundreds of pages of reports from her injuries and weeks-long hospital stay. While my husband and I stayed in the hospital with our youngest daughter, unsure of whether she would live to see the next day, my family stepped up to take care of our older daughter and help her try to feel safe after the trauma that you had just inflicted. I cannot begin to expect a narcissist like you to understand what it's like to sit in the ICU staring at your daughter with tubes and wires from every part of her body trying to keep her alive, watching every monitor and test result, hoping that things are going the right direction, not knowing if your daughter is going to wake up the same bright, bubbly girl she was before a monster plowed through at her Christmas parade. When she did wake up, the real struggle began. Our then 9-year-old daughter had to learn to eat, talk, move, and walk again. She had to use a wheelchair and walker for months, even as she returned to school. Instead of playing in the snow with her friends at recess, she sat in a wheelchair. She couldn't dance. She couldn't run around playing with her friends. Even today, she deals with the effects of this day. Her leg still hurts. She struggles with the neurological effects of her injuries, is on seizure medication, and worries about every little symptom for fear it is something bigger related to her injuries. Your own mother and grandmother, Darrell Brooks, have claimed your supposed mental health issues are to blame, but you, Darrell Brooks, were found to be completely competent and fully aware of exactly what you were doing. All you had to do was hit the brakes instead of the gas pedal. Yet, like the narcissist you are, you claimed you honked to the horn, but in your eyes, somehow it was their fault. They didn't get out of the way. You were so fully aware of your wrongfulness of your actions that you ran from the vehicle, tried to change your appearance, and lied in an attempt to get away from the scene. You knew exactly what you were doing. Darrell Brooks, you have destroyed our sense of safety and security in our own community. You are the reason my kids are afraid to cross the street. You are the reason my kids don't sleep at night. You are the reason we may never enjoy a parade again. You are the reason my daughters are afraid of the dark. You are the reason my daughters don't feel safe without their parents around. You are the reason we visit doctors constantly. And you are the reason their lives will never be the same again. You have taken something from them that cannot be regained, and for that I hope you rot in hell.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna actually rewind it a bit because we got a new victim coming up. It's to the point now where every time a family member says exactly what we're all thinking, it's refreshing to hear that portion of it. Because here's the thing, Darrell is absolutely a narcissist. That moment where she put it in these terms, think about it if it was your daughter. Now, that goes over Darrell's head because Darrell doesn't even care about his own daughter. He doesn't care about any of his children. He only cares about himself.
The Waukesha Christmas Parade, November 21st, 2021, impacted me both physically and mentally because of you, Darrell Brooks. After the Christmas parade incident, that night, I had to try and find my sister. I was taken away from her to get to safety. I had to explain to my mom what happened while crying and trying to get to a safe spot. I got to finally find my family, but then getting taken away again from my mother and sister to get to safety. I had to try to stay calm in front of all of my cousins and family. I was not able to see my sister for over a week and a half, and I did not get to see my mom for several days. All of these things and many more were very hard for me. I was so worried, not just about my parents and my sister, but about all of my friends and family that were either at the parade or in it. After the parade, I was scared to go in my own house. I was even scared to be in a room or house alone. It was very scary to do anything alone. I was scared of everything. I didn't sleep for the first night, even though you, Darrell Brooks, were arrested. I was still worried about that something might happen. I no longer felt safe. Not only did you impact me, but you also impacted my sister Mackenzie. She was severely
please move the camera.
And a broken femur. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks because of you. I didn't get to spend as much time as I normally would with my parents because they were at the hospital with my sister. During the holidays and Thanksgiving, I should have been able to spend with my parents and sister, but I couldn't because of you. The incident impacted me physically as well. I had a huge bruise on my back, as well as the bruised bones in both of my ankles.
Oh my goodness, dude. This is insane. Why can we not just get straight to the sentencing? I want to get straight to the sentencing. I wish that Judge Darrell, I know she can't. I wish that she would, if she sees that, she just goes, hey, this is actually kind of disrupting what we're doing. So bailiff, can you just like gag him and tie him to the chair there and then we'll just keep it going? I don't know. Just make him uncomfortable. The fact that he's so comfortable right now, that he's sitting here rolling his eyes and all of this. Oh my goodness, man. Okay.
That night, as soon as you drove through the parade, all I could think about was my sister. I was so worried about her. I kept trying to find her. After running from person to person, she was the last person that I found. All I remember was seeing my teammates' terrified faces as they were on the sidewalk. As I was looking for my sister, I saw 4 of the girls that were injured on the ground before I even found my sister. When I found her, I was suddenly rushed into a store, as I was still on the phone with my mom. As soon as I rushed into the store, my nana and uncle both came to get me when my mom went to the hospital with my sister. All I could remember is that I wasn't even scared for myself. I was mostly worried about my family and my teammates. It was almost 3 hours before we were allowed to leave the church. We were on lockdown. I hadn't had any connection with my family for the whole time that I was in the church. There were a lot of people coming into the church after I came in trying to all stay safe. It's hard to even think that you do not even care about anything that you did or anyone that you hurt. It's hard to know that all you care about is trying to make everyone feel unsafe and scared to do anything. The fact that most scared me and made me feel disgust when I heard your name or saw you was the fact that you didn't stop when you hit multiple people. You didn't stop when you saw or heard yourself hitting people, and the most horrific thing is that all you try to do is run away from your problems. Let this be a lesson to you, Darrell Brooks. Your crimes and stupidity is always going to come back to you, no matter how hard you try for it not to. I hope you know that you were such a horrible person that night, and I hope you get what you deserve, and I know that you will.
For the record, that was victim AA, Your Honor.
1000%. I second that. wish we could get the camera off the
I'm
student.
one of 4 siblings that were victims of Mr. Brooks. In fact, I am the oldest child, and with being the oldest, that comes with an unhealthy ambition to protect my family. But that night, on November 21st, I felt like I was unable to achieve that goal. My siblings, fortunately, don't remember that night, but unfortunately, I do. I remember everything from celebrating my sister's birthday beforehand to meeting her unconscious at the hospital. I can't help but feel guilty for what happened to my brother that night, everything up to his open compound fracture and his shadowed humerus. Something deep inside me still believes that it's my fault. He wasn't supposed to be there that night. He wasn't supposed to be walking in the parade, but he wanted to because his older sister was there. He was right next to me through the whole parade up to when we got struck. I can't help but feel like some of my mental and physical injuries, or some of his mental physical injuries, are my fault. I still remember screaming his name while being carried into burlap and lace on Main Street. I would like to say I had hope, but with all the frustrated, confused, and what-if statements and scenarios in my head, that hope eventually turned into doubt. That night, I realized the love I had for my family. I still have regrets and struggles, but so does my mom, dad, friends, and community.
That's
We all have
understandable.
regrets, but the struggles we faced are laying on your hands, Mr. Brooks. My uncle always told me to show kindness through times of trial, but I am not able to give that to you. Even through school, I've been taught that forgiveness is the moral way to forget, but I will never be able to forgive and forget. I mean, how can a man not know the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, good and bad? Basic things you were taught in kindergarten. Brooks, your behavior before and during this trial, your ignorance and arrogance to the victims of your crime is so disrespectful and just unbelievable. Fun fact, you, Mr. Brooks, brought my mom to testify on your behalf. How could you believe that was the civil thing to do, knowing that she had 4 kids injured and hit by your SUV?
That is one thing I remember we talked about that at one point. How stupid is that? How dumb is that? It really shows how demented he truly is. The fact that he thought the victims were so on his side that they cared more about him being free than they cared about justice for their families is possibly the dumbest part of everything that he did. I mean, the dumbest part is what he did in the first place, driving through a parade. Like, that's why he always goes on these tangents where he's talking about you're working with this person, then you work with their father. He tries to make it seem as if there's a giant conspiracy and everybody's working together to get him, and he truly believes that instead of wanting to bring like justice to the deceased and the injured, the only thing they care about is that there's an injustice for Darrell. Darrell should be taken care of. We shouldn't put this man in prison. What are you doing, Judge Darrell? Why are you being mean to him? This dude is an absolute clown, and I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna go back a little bit just so we don't miss anything.
Knowing that she had 4 kids injured and hit by your SUV. You knew that this would affect her and my family emotionally and physically. How could you be so stupid, egotistical, and delusional? You bring up mental illness, but what I find unacceptable is the fact that you had the choice, but you kept going. I will always have the simple question of why. But that might never be answered. My sisters had a passion for dance. My brother played baseball and soccer. I am a dancer and I will always be a dancer, but because of your actions, it will never feel the same. I know my siblings and I have accepted the fact that we might never be able to regain our passions and dreams. We know that we now have lifelong challenges, but we also have people that support us and help us regain our hope and goals that we lost that night. Overall, I want people to remember that this is not about the parade, this is about the man. The depression, anger, sorrow, all these negative feelings shouldn't be directed towards the parade, instead directed towards the man. This is not the parade's fault, and I think we need to come together as a community and realize that. With all the media and all the press, reaching out to my family in the past year has brought anxiety and stress. But I want that, or I want to thank my family, friends, and community one more time for supporting my family through these trying times and also giving me the confidence to stand here and say I want to punch this man in the face. Your Honor, I need Darrell Brooks to serve the time he deserves without parole. I need him to be locked up for life, and that is my statement.
I love that. I wish I had, I have these like party poppers. I don't know what they're called, like confetti poppers. We all want to punch Darrell Brooks in the face. I love some of the stuff I'm hearing. Once again, I'm not saying I love any of the stuff that they're saying they went through. It's those little parts where they say exactly what we all feel. I want to punch Darrell Brooks in the face. I don't think I've ever said that. I try not to get into like violent stuff, even though the topics we're discussing are pretty violent in nature, the stuff that he did. This is another thing. These kids are amazing. I've said it numerous times. I was a super shy kid. I don't think I would ever be able to do this. You hear they said I'm the older sibling, and I felt like that day I couldn't protect my brothers and my sisters. I hope she can find the peace to dance. And Darrell doesn't rip away their passion. I know that's easier said than done. Beautiful stuff though.
And that was victim JJ, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Darrell Brooks, I am back. Do I have to say more? My daughter pretty much clarified why the hell did you bring me up to the stand? Pardon my language, Judge.
Makes no
Boggles
sense.
my mind. Absolutely boggles my mind. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. They brought my children's names up. They addressed concerns. Your arrogance and your behavior is just pathetic. On that behalf, though, I am here on behalf of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 children. I'm not going to testify and tell you all the particulars and injuries of what happened to my children. We saw that on the stand. I'm not going to tell you about the stress of how, as parents, we had to suffer and continue to suffer day after day, taking our kids to appointments, having a healthy mind and soul. But you know what? We're doing a darn good job. I say this with a heavy heart. I have my kids here. I have my kids here. Grayson, as Charlotte says, had an open compound fracture. We know how an open compound fracture happens, Mr. Brooks. You could have stopped. You saw the darn exhibit. You saw that exhibit of my daughter. You saw her. And your expression is unacceptable. Your behavior has been unacceptable. Emotionally, as a mother, you have to go one way or another. You have to, let me just start off by saying, as Charlotte knows, there were 2 calls that came to me that night, and I couldn't put everything together. I was just like, what is going on? That 3rd call, my mindset changed. I couldn't cry. I couldn't get mad. I had to fight for my children. Their father and I had to push forward. Do we have time to worry about our own feelings? Oh boy. We still are working through that. I am working through that. But you know what? I won't show them weakness. They are on a positive road, mentally and physically. My son Grayson loves soccer, can kick that ball in any direction. And now he's still learning to walk and run in a consistent manner.
Amazing.
Alice, as Charlotte mentioned, whose passion was dancing. has sorrow now. She hasn't made it back to dancing yet. Vivian, the youngest, as you saw in that exhibit as I spoke, is the life of the family, joking, living it up when you broke her tailbone and she was unconscious at Children's Hospital for extended time. You did that, Mr. Brooks. This is on you. But these kids will not be weak. Their family will not allow them to be weak. They are going to strive for success with what you put them through. Again, I want to limit any injury, things of that nature, because you know what? They're striving. They're doing great. And I can only hope that they continue in that manner, in a positive nature. What I do want to thank is a few people. Jeff, who helped Charlotte that night. Both Officer Ryan with Waukesha, I'm using their first names. Officer Ryan, who did save Grayson's life. Officer Ryan from Pewaukee, who did drive Grayson to the hospital. The other fellow dance families who have slowly and surely advised me of their personal connections they had with my 4 kids that night. That I can't be thankful, or sorry, I'm going to be forever grateful for their love and compassion. For their grandparents who had to watch our 2 other children while 2 of them were in Children's Hospital for extended time. And for my sisters who were my heart and soul during this whole time, helping my family move forward, trying to figure out how we move forward with 4 children being injured. I do have, in closing, as I mentioned earlier, I do say with a heavy heart, my hands are shaking, sorry. I do have a heavy heart because I do have my children with me. But as Charlotte has said, my brother, who unfortunately passed away 2 months before this event took place, always told us kindness will take you far. So to those who unfortunately are not with us, I just would like to read the following. I watch you every day. I am always very near. I know deep down in your heart you realize that I am here. I hear you when you speak to me, when you are on your own. You cannot understand the reason that I am gone. I will never leave you. I am here to keep you strong. Talk to me, I hear you. We share an unbroken bond that will always be. Death won't keep us apart, for our love is forever. Just remember me in your heart, and one day we will be together. Live your life and live it full. Don't waste a single day. Remember, I am always with you every step of the way. And as it has been said before, we do have angels looking over us. And my children now have 6 more. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, next victim.
I have struggled to write down words to describe the impact November 21st of 2021 has had on me. What was supposed to be a joyful day was quickly turned into an unimaginable nightmare. I woke up that morning excited for the parade instead of dreading it like I always do. Out of all the Waukesha parades I've walked in the past 4 years, this was the only one I looked forward to. If only I knew it was going to be the worst day of my life. As the parade started, I went around taking pictures of all the girls while they danced, so their parents had action shots of them dancing. We rounded the corner of White Rock and finally made it onto Main Street. I remember seeing the beautiful sunset behind my girls. I recorded them dancing with the sunset behind them. Little to know that would be my last video of them. My video was taken exactly 10 minutes before the defendant senselessly drove his car straight into my girls' backs. They didn't even have the chance to move out of the way before he plowed into them and continued on his path of destruction. Alice was the first body I saw. I picked her up immediately and was quickly yelled at to put her down, not knowing it could have just caused more damage to her. She was awake and conscious. I took off my coat to give her a pillow and laid over her body to shield her. I kept telling her she was going to be okay. One thing that will stick with me forever is the fact that she looked up at me with her teeth chipped and knocked out and said, "Why would someone do this?" I will never forget those words. The defendant was 39 at the time. She was 10. If a 10-year-old knew it was wrong, so did he. But he didn't care because he kept driving. He is the definition of a monster. After Alice, I was with 2 more of my girls in the street before making my way to the hospital. The hospital was also another chaotic scene. Bodies all over. People were standing, sitting, and laying in the ground. I saw one of my girls laying on the floor with her mom. I held her hand and kept asking her to squeeze me, so I knew she'd stay with us. She kept going in and out of consciousness. Every time she'd open her eyes, her mouth would open as she sobbed in absolute pain. I glanced to my left and saw another one of my girls in a wheelchair with about 5 nurses huddled around her. She wasn't doing good, and they knew that. We rushed her to the back as she started to seize and vomit. When her parents arrived, I left the hospital not knowing if I'd ever see some of my girls alive again. The following days, weeks, and months were just as horrible. 4 of my girls were in comas. The questions never stopped circulating in my head. Would they ever wake up? Would they even remember who I was? The thing about being a coach is you're kind of stuck in between being a mom and a friend. I felt trapped that I couldn't take their pain away, trapped that I couldn't be there with them at the hospital every day. I had to put a brave face on for all of my other girls, even though I was completely broken inside. Attempting to describe the impact this evil crime has had on me would be impossible. How can I write into words something that broke me so badly? Emotionally and mentally, I have never been the same since that day. Throughout the whole trial, I waited for the defendant to cry, for him to show some sort of remorse for my girls and everyone else he hurt. He has shown no sense of empathy other than for himself. Only a monster would show no remorse for such a heinous crime they committed. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he just kept driving. He knew it was wrong because he then attempted to flee after he ditched the car. He's a selfish and cowardly human being who deserves to never see the daylight again. Thank you. Thank you.
You remember from the trial, Your Honor, that was Elizabeth James. Yes, thank you.
I remember her, and Darrell was especially aggressive towards her. I truly believe when it comes to like a woman being in his presence, he feels like a sense of ownership or something, or he just gets more aggressive than he would when it's just a guy or something. Like you saw it when it came to how he dealt with Erica. That came across in the courtroom when he dealt with Judge Darrell, when he lashed out at the prosecution at times. Okay, I don't know what they just said. I kind of want to go back a little bit because something was said right after she finished speaking. So let's see.
Cowardly human being who deserves to never see the daylight again. Thank you. Thank you.
You remember from the trial, Your Honor, that was Elizabeth James. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm still not totally sure. I think she said we remember someone. I'm not sure.
My name is Darrell. I'll read their symbols that I was given. II, JJ, KKLL. Well, their names are Charlotte, Alice, Vivian, and Grayson. I'm not a victim. It's very hard for me to stand up here and to be talking about a victim when I don't feel like a victim. My children are the victims. Other people were victims. I'm a beholder. And I feel I'm a beholder of the darkness and the evil, but also the light and the good of the aftermath of the act of violence that Mr. Brooks brought upon the community that evening. Let's talk about, this is a Christmas parade. A Christmas parade that I've attended many times. My oldest daughter, Charlotte, has been a part of the extreme dance for many years. She was there handing out candy along with my son. At that time, I did not know that he was handing out candy. But I knew that my two other daughters were a part of the teams. They were part of the junior team and the mini team. I sometimes walk into the parade. I do not like walking in the July 4th parade because it's too hot. Okay, I'd rather walk during the Christmas parade when it's a little bit cooler out. But at that time, I texted my mom and said, would you like to come? I was not supposed to be at the parade. I was supposed to be up north hunting that weekend. So I decided to stay back. Decisions that I reflect upon and think about how I became on that spot off of Wisconsin Avenue on that day. So my mom texted me and said, yes, I will come meet you. So I was not, and if she did not do that, I was going to text my oldest daughter, Charlotte, and say, I'm going to meet you in the staging area, and I will come walk with you and hand out candy. So I was standing on Wisconsin with my mom, and to say now about this parade. Now this is about children. The Christmas parade is about children, about happiness and love. That evening, if people remember, was very cold and windy, very bitter wind, where sometimes that wind gets you and you're almost just standing there. But even through that coldness and the bitter wind, you can really, truly feel the happiness within the crowd of the parade. And I thought about that. And it's just about, I knew that possibly around the corner, standing over on Wisconsin, that eventually the extreme team would be coming around that corner and I'd see them. And then I had my hood up, and it was cold, but then at the corner of my eye, and kind of watching it, I see a red SUV start to come around that corner, but not really fast, not very fast, because Mr. Brooks, you hit the brakes to go around the corner. If you did not hit the brakes, you would have taken that turn way too fast, and then you would have gone into the Veterans Park. So that part didn't seem too odd to me. My hood was kind of covering. I didn't really see the damage of the SUV. So I saw the SUV turn, but I didn't think it was odd until it did not turn and crashed through the barriers. And then the officer shot 3 times after it. Silence. The parade now, everyone is silent. Northwest Avenue, I live on that road. 2 blocks up. That is my road that I live on. Silence. But then people start kind of moving. Where it's like the parade just stopped. I moved to the corner, and then you start seeing and feeling the people starting to stream around the corner, screaming, crying. I have my mom with me. They're saying, do not go around that corner. There are dead people. Do not go around that corner. We both looked at each other, and I said, where are the children? Right. So me and my mom went around that corner and really went through the wake of the evil and hell that Mr. Brooks, that you brought to this community. And going through and seeing and going around the corner and seeing just bodies as far as you can see, injured on the ground. And sometimes I feel personal guilt that I couldn't truly stop and help some of those people in need. I had to keep going. At times I paused and paused. I have my mom screaming, crying, seeing women, adults, people injured, deceased bodies. Once we passed through that section, that's where, Mr. Brooks, you changed me. Because at that point, there's a difference where they talk about an active shooter. Not everyone saw the officer shoot. So in that case, they didn't know. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of just in that all the realm. People are screaming. People are crying. There's people running all over the place. That's where you changed me, Mr. Brooks. That's where I, after a thing, I gave myself up to say, if there's an active shooter, I am willing to get shot in my head. I am running up this street. Where are my kids? And that's what I did. And as the darkness descended upon that street...
A level of dedication to your children that Darrell Brooks will never understand, but I'm sorry. Okay.
The sun was going down, and I run up the middle of the street, and I run up to the 5 points. I start seeing the extreme truck that they use, pom-poms on the ground, but you can't see around there. And then I come around. I left my mom, which was a decision that I had to make. She caught up, but I took off running. I found my daughter, Alice, first, and it was mentioned. She had broken teeth, blood on her face, facial. She's so brave. When I came to her, I screamed her name 2 to 3 times. There were people around her trying to help her. She looks at me and she goes, Daddy, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I didn't know what to. And she looked at me and I just, at that point, I didn't understand. And she goes, and I go, where's Vivian? She's over there. And I look around and there's my youngest daughter over by the side of the curb, motionless. Her limbs weren't moving, but yet her body was shaking uncontrollably. So I went over there to help there. And from my daughter Alice, I learned that my son, for the first time handing out candy, was in the parade. I did not know that. I was also told by her that Charlotte, my oldest, was there and she was injured. You did this. They weren't the only ones, the children. This is a Christmas parade about love and happiness, getting ready for the holiday season. I'm sitting in the other room watching other statements and watching you roll your eyes to people's powerful statements. The hurt that people have in their souls. And you're rolling your eyes at them and making facial expressions. If I look around this room, no one else is wearing a mask. What are you hiding from? You're wearing a mask. I don't see anybody else. Forgiveness. I do not forgive you. I do not forgive you because I have not heard these 3 words from you through this entire trial. I am sorry. Not once. Not once have I ever heard anything. What I've heard you do is be abusive. Abusive to the judge, abusive to the prosecution, abusive to the witnesses. And I think that's what you have. You're an abuser. And then when people stick up to you, do you want to become? Now you're the victim. You carry your Bible. And you say you're a God-fearing man. But I feel those scriptures are hollow and empty to you now. Just like God has left you. You can pat your chest and have that book open, but I don't believe those words and those scriptures mean anything to you anymore. My children are healing, and the community is healing. If there is no verses between my children and the other people that hurt, the people that lost their lives and their families. But we're all in this together now. All of us, the community. It isn't just people that live in Waukesha. What you did had these energy that went across, it goes so far for the people that you hurt. And I don't think you truly understand that, or maybe you don't care. For the sentencing, as other people have said, I feel the maximum is appropriate in this situation. The terror, the horror, the pain, the fear that you've caused to so many individuals. And everyone has their own unique path for healing. And I hope that you will get sentenced to what you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
The way that he vividly described the entire scene that day, and this clown starts to pat his chest. Oh my goodness. I love the way he dismantled everything that Darrell has been doing this whole time. The fact that he's rolling his eyes, he's hiding, he's wearing the mask. That is the first time, I think maybe somebody else has called it out, but it's the first time that I've seen really someone call out that he's wearing a mask, and he's always trying to hide from everything that he's done, like the coward he is. Let's go ahead and keep going. As he presents his devil horn hairline to the camera.
Honestly, I have so much to say to you, Darrell, and to the court. You exemplified Christ, and you were going to be very blessed and honored for that. So thank you. Okay, you guys were amazing, honestly. So thank you. My daughter was not listed as a victim. She was dancing with Extreme Dance Team on November 21st with my niece. She was on the right side of the route and did not get hit. But she did not get hit by the car. She got hit by another team member. And that wasn't revealed to me, Darrell, until I watched the video. And I struggled to understand how my daughter got injured. And I'll get more into that, but that day you impacted thousands. And I know this is just another story for you, and I wish it would impact you, and I really pray that it does, okay? So, as the parade started, we were by the library. I dropped my daughter off in her position with her team, and I just remember when the parade had stopped, and I knew immediately. My sister-in-law got a phone call from my niece, and my niece, who was 13 at the time, said my whole team is dead. Our girls were living in fear, thinking their teammates were dead, Darrell. They thought they were dead. The images that they saw of their friends will never be erased. We got the phone call, and I did not see you hit anybody. When I hit the main street, I saw the dancing grannies dying. I didn't know who they were until the names were released, and I had to figure out in my own head who I saw dying. One of the moms, who's an ICU doctor, was working on one of the dancing grannies. There was blood everywhere, Darrell. You have to see what you did. I had no idea what I was walking into. And I honestly am so sorry for all the families who lost their loved ones. What I saw, no human being should ever see. Everyone that was in the court witnessed what you did, but I lived it, I walked it. I heard things I didn't want to hear. I heard someone screaming over Jane Gulick. And I no longer could remember anything after that, after I saw Jean dying, till I got to my daughter. We were ushered into the bakery, and I screamed for my daughter. She was safe, but I have survivor's guilt over her living, and that's not fair. 6 people died. There's a mom who doesn't have her baby boy anymore, and I got to go home with her that night. Once we were released from the bakery, we had to walk back through the nightmare. It was a crime scene. There were bodies covered up that my daughter had to see a dead person covered up because it was a crime scene. The next day, my daughter woke up and screaming in pain. We didn't take her to the hospital. I did what I thought was best, to take her to the chiropractor and get her x-rays. I'm a naturopath, so that's what I do. Her doctor has never seen such a twisted spine, neck, pelvis. We had to put her back together. She was, but emotionally she was broken. She had nightmares. She missed school weekly. And it's because of another little girl who hit her.
from the car that you hit, and I figured that out a few weeks ago. I didn't know what happened. Darrell, I don't know what's in your heart. I don't. But also God tells us that we will know them by their fruit. I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. I believe in everything that the Bible has to say. I'm not perfect either. But what we witnessed during the trial was you reading or holding your Bible, even in anger, saying that you were reading the book to the judge. What is hard to witness is that reading that Bible has not brought you to repentance. When I read that Bible, the things that I've done, I am repentant and I say sorry for what I've done. I'm not perfect. So when the Word of God convicts us by reading the Word, it produces change. I have not seen that in you. Not once have you repented to even ask for forgiveness for what you've done. Not once have you admitted what you've done. Can you not face what you've done? You have to. You have to face what you've done. You presented to the court that you didn't want to be called by your name. This is a trial that you caused. The DA didn't cause this trial. My daughter and her team didn't cause this trial. The state of Wisconsin and all parties involved didn't cause this trial. You did. You have to own that. To me, this is not a man who's after God's heart. You used the Bible and you used God. That's blasphemy. I know what I'm talking about. This is not a matter of mental health or a system failing you. You failed yourself. If you are a man like you say you are and you were not brought up this way and you were brought up in a Christian home, go back to your Christian roots. Go back to the man that God actually wanted you to be. But in turn, you have not had any responsibility to confess of what you did that day. You can't face that you murdered people, you've injured hundreds, you emotionally traumatized thousands, and not repent from what you did. To repent means that and to be saved means you get to enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay? You have to ask for forgiveness. You have to admit what you did. This is not going to change bringing people back. It's not going to change the 21st. It's not going to change people's lives. But you might actually help someone heal just by saying, I'm sorry. You also said in your closing statement that this was God's will for what you did that day. And that I believe is a false testimony of the God that I know. You are a father. And my daddy, my heavenly Father, would never ever want anyone to be murdered with a car as the murder weapon. All those you hurt and killed that day, they're his children. Doesn't matter what age they were. John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive our sins, to cleanse us from unrighteousness. That includes you, Darrell. You must confess to all these people in God so that you can be saved, and that's not popular. For you to enter the kingdom of heaven, it is possible. The man hanging on the cross, like the earlier statement, he was saved that day, and the other one wasn't. And that I want you to sit with. For the wages of sin is death. That means hell. That means hell. But the free gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ. So I'm angry for what you did. I'm sad that a lot of people don't get to spend another day with their loved ones. I'm sad that a lot of my dance family, we don't know the outcome of their brain injuries and what's their future. You have to traumatize families and people that have witnessed. You have thousands. You killed 6 people. But maybe, just maybe, you could bring some peace to some of these people. Do you hear me, Darrell? Instead of rolling your eyes that what you did, just respect it. And I know people yelled at you today, but I'm not coming to you in anger. I'm coming to you in unconditional love, because that's what our Father offers us. I don't know if I have forgiven you yet, and I know that's what God wants me to do, but I think that you could just offer a little peace by just saying, I'm sorry. Thank you.
November 20.
She's basically begging him, admit what you did, stop being a coward. She's not taking the approach of screaming, but even then, as she got to the end, you started to see he's starting to get bored and he's looking around, when is this gonna end? He's basically just looking at Judge Darrell like, is it time for a break? Can I like stop being scolded by everybody? No, you clown, you. The show continues. Jeez. Look at that.
November 21st will never be the same. It was a very tragic day for us all. With this day being the day after my birthday, November 20th, I was thinking it would be a good day. I was going to be dancing in the parade with Waukesha Extreme Dance Team. I loved this team as a whole. My mom, dad, aunt, and cousin were sitting at the end of the parade route. As we got closer to the parade starting, I got a really uneasy feeling in my stomach. As me being a Christian, I believed it was the Holy Spirit warning me. My cousin was also on the team with me. In the parade, she was in front of me and we were both on the far right side. As we danced in the parade, I knew something was wrong. Something just didn't sit right with me. After this feeling, my hearing went out. All I heard was loud thump noises. My friends getting hit by the SUV. I had seen two girls fly across the concrete and hit the curb in front of me. I got out of the way confused and in shock. I remembered I had left my phone in the car. I saw my cousin Brooklyn get her phone out and call her mom. As a 13-year-old, the words she spoke on the phone are words I would never want to hear someone I cared so deeply for say. As her mom answered the phone, not knowing what had happened, Brooklyn spoke and said, "Mom, my whole team is dead." People then told us there was a shooting and we needed to get to safety, so we went inside of a bakery. They told us all to go into the back of the bakery for safety. I called my mother off of somebody's phone and told her to get inside and be safe, but she told me no, she was going to find me. I told her the building name I was in. I sat there drowning in my thoughts until my mom had got there. As she entered, I heard her screaming my name. She hugged me, and a few seconds later, somebody screamed that there was an active shooter, so we all dropped to the ground. I moved to the corner where Brooklyn, my aunt, and other friends were sitting. It felt like we were sitting there for hours when it wasn't that long. As we sat there, my best friend, my cousin, was saying something that would haunt me forever. She sat there with her head tucked in her knees, repeating over and over and over again to herself how she thought she was gonna die. I thought my best friends had died that day, and this thought will forever be with me. We eventually got let out to walk back to our cars. As we were walking out, I saw one of my best friends laying on the ground of the bakery. She had not been taken to the hospital yet. I stayed calm that whole time up until I saw her. As I walked back to my car, link armed with my friend, we tried to look at our feet and not up at the street, but I couldn't help looking up. I'd seen bodies covered up in the streets. That image will never leave my mind. I woke up the next day not being able to move my body. I screamed and cried thinking I was paralyzed. We didn't go to the hospital but to the chiropractor. I got x-rays done and they came back showing the worst whiplash my chiropractor has ever seen. My spine was thrown off and twisted in ways it should not have been. It was so bad my spine could barely support holding up my head. It was the worst pain I've ever felt. My mom asked me if I had got hit by the car, but I told her I couldn't remember. For the last year I've been recovering still. Many days I'd feel pain unimaginable. I also had got horrible migraines a lot. Many days my whole arm would go numb from the injury. Some days I couldn't feel any of my left side. These days were some of the scariest. We couldn't figure out how I got injured until a video was released. It showed how a girl that had got hit flew into me, injuring me. Not only did this day change my life physically, but mentally too. I struggled with depression afterwards. I blamed myself for this awful tragedy. told myself there was some way I could have stopped it from happening.
Right.
Even though it was something I had no control over. My mental health declined majorly. I tried my best to act okay so people wouldn't worry, but many days I just couldn't. I skipped school so many days weekly because I couldn't mentally go. I was in so much darkness I couldn't find any light. I tried my best asking for help, but I was too scared. I thought about you every single day, Darrell. I thought, how could any man do this to any other human being? I'm sorry to all those who lost people they'll never get to see again. It angered me every day. It hurt to think about. This day will always and forever have a place in my mind. The days after we waited to find out info about my friends. Some of them had horrible brain injuries and other horrible physical injuries. At one moment, I was told my friend Julia would maybe not make it. It broke me hearing that. Knowing I cared about all these people so much, it hurt me to know they were in a situation like this. As I continued to try to heal, I realized it takes a long time to heal physically and mentally. I didn't think my mental health would ever get better. I thought this up until I surrendered my life to Jesus. I leaned on him for help. A verse that stuck with me is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. This verse reminded me that I can get through this and will get through this with the help of God. I knew if I could that my friends could as well. As I wrote this here, I finally realized this all truly happened to me. I guess I never really allowed myself to believe it because I never wanted to. But we must all face things in our lives. As I watched the trial go on, you always had your Bible, but you never repented, you never asked for forgiveness for ruining people's lives. John 16:13 states, "When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears he will speak. He will declare the things unto you that are to come." And as you sat there with your Bible, all you had to do was declare what was true, to confess what you had done, when you knew you had done it and you knew it was wrong. But you sat there, you rolled your eyes, not caring that you killed innocent people. So I'm so horribly sorry to all people who had lost things that day. Loss of friends and family members, loss of being able to be the same person ever again. I'm sorry to all who struggle with health problems for the rest of their lives. I know that I had lost a piece of myself that day, and I'm still trying to find it. This day was supposed to be a happy day filled with smiles and laughter, but it had got turned into a tragedy. This day will never be the same for any of us.
The level of terror that he's spread across this entire city, it's insane. And I remember just a second ago, someone mentioned that they had survivor's guilt for their child surviving. For me, I tear up a lot of times when I'm listening to these. I wanted to pause too, just to give us all a second to, I guess, get ourselves together. I'm not going to pause for the next ones. Feels weird like cutting them off as they're speaking.
Darrell. My name is Yuretsi Becerra Montes. On November 21st, 2021, my life and my family's life changed forever. The day that was supposed to be a day of joy that became a nightmare to me, my family, and our community. On that day, my parents and my siblings witnessed the red SUV that drove into my dance team. My mom ran without thinking she could be hurt too. She remembers the red SUV that almost hit her while running into the road because he was coming her way, but he swerved. They couldn't find me right away because I was under a car that was playing the music for us. I flew 15 to 20 feet from where I was dancing.
Jeez.
I was lucky that I wasn't injured like my friends because my head bumped into a truck that was playing the music for us, and I fell on the street and hit the back of my head on someone's leg, but I didn't suffer from a major injury. My family calls me a miracle because things would have been worse, and maybe things would look different if my injuries were more severe. I spent a couple of nights in the hospital, but the worst part was that I woke up and asked my dad what I was doing in the hospital because I was dancing and I thought my nightmare was over. It was a traumatic experience that traumatized all of us. While I was in the hospital, I was remembering what really happened. I was dancing that day and I had a smile on my face. Once I heard what I thought were fireworks, it were gunshots. But at the moment, I knew that nothing happens in Waukesha and that I'm safe. And so I kept dancing. I was hurt that day. I was struck by the red SUV. I felt like I was going to die. I woke up on the ground to my family surrounding me, thinking it was all a dream, not knowing what was going on. My body was hurting and I couldn't move. I saw the looks on their faces. My mom was crying and so was the rest of my family. My mom kept telling me the paramedics to go help other people that were unconscious. My daughter is awake and is talking to us. Please, go help other people. Others. My mom was a hero. She helped a little girl that was hurt in the middle of the road that was being stepped on. She carried her and put her on the side of the street and asked people to help her because she was still looking for me. I remember someone holding my hand in my head, telling me it was going to be okay. Then I heard someone yell, "Active shooter." Scared and shocked at the disbelief of what was going on, my dad had to carry me into a bakery for our safety. All I could hear were ambulance sirens and screaming. I couldn't understand what was happening because there was so much going on. I wasn't sure if it was real life or a dream. But at the moment, I was really hoping it was a dream because I didn't want it to be real. I had to witness everything around me and my friends on the ground unconscious, not knowing what would happen to them and if they would even wake up. Since that day, I've been traumatized with sirens, screaming, fireworks, being in big crowds, and hearing the song I danced to when the tragedy hit. After that day, it was a very hard topic to talk about, as well as now. To this day, I still struggle with pain and nightmares and PTSD. I don't know when my body is going to feel normal again. All of this made me sad, angry, and anxious because I cannot understand why someone could do this to our community. All of Waukesha has experienced this tragedy even if they weren't there to see it. As in losing loved ones, having to go through an injury or families that were injured as well. People who watched it happen and see their loved ones get hurt, or even just seeing this tragedy on the news. This affected our community of Waukesha to the point that some people weren't and still aren't ready to go back downtown or even participate in a parade again. I'll always struggle from that day, and it haunts me and so many others to think that a tradition for over 50 years has become a remembrance of the people who died and the injuries that occurred that day. I forgive him after everything he's done, even though he never apologized for his actions, because I'm thankful justice has been served and that he won't do damage to anyone again. I thank you, Your Honor, and everyone in the jury for making justice for all of us and our community. I ask you, Your Honor, that he won't ever see the light of day again. I thank you for everyone who supported us through difficult times. Thank you.
That's victim one. All right.
We do have a poster. Do you want that on the list? Yes, please.
Oh man, somebody else. Is that a family painting?
I would like to first address the picture that we'll be putting up on the easel. In that picture, it is my sister, Jesselyn Torres, victim HH, in the ICU. It is what a lot of other victims had looked like, from tubes keeping them alive to machines being watched over every minute of the day to see if they're doing okay. November 21st was like any other Christmas parade. My sister was dancing, my mom was pulling my baby sister in a wagon, and my brother and I were walking with them throwing candy. Everything was so normal in the beginning. Everyone was lined up in their orders and people were taking pictures, laughing, talking, dancing. The mood was very joyful, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. The images and events from that day still weigh heavily on my mind. Vivian Darrell was the little girl I stayed with for a little bit after the tragic event. I still can feel the blood on my hands after I wiped it off her dripping head with my cold fingers. I told her that I was there for her so that she knows that somebody was with her as I listened to her whimpering cry that stays in my mind. I cried when I found my baby sister without my mother. She was confused about what just happened, so I held her in my arms, squeezing her as tight as I could. I remember finding my mother and sister, the visions of my mother's face in a panic, trying to puzzle everything together. She had her hands over my sister's body along with others. Holding my sister's head, I screamed when I saw the sight of my sister. Her face looked destroyed, with her body half naked from her clothes getting ripped off. I still remember my other family members' faces and screams when they saw my sister lying there. I broke down and fell to my knees. I felt broken when my grandmother started breaking down and screaming. The moment when they lifted my sister's unconscious body with a blanket into the back of a sheriff's car made me suddenly not breathe. It felt like there was no more air left in the world. It felt like I was being stabbed in the heart when I read my mother's messages about all the injuries my sister had. It was one text after another. I couldn't believe it was all real. From the trauma, I couldn't go back home because I knew my mom or sister wasn't going to be there. So I went to my friends, and my friend held me that night as my body shook. The pain of not being able to see my mother and hearing the cries of my 2-year-old sister constantly saying that she wants her mom broke my heart into little pieces. The whole time my sister was in the hospital, it was a blur, a tunnel vision every day, hour, minute, and second. We were lucky to have a Thanksgiving miracle to be able to see my mother for the first time after the incident. It relieved some of my pain and anxiety, and it felt nice to have so much weight removed off my chest when I hugged my mother, even with it being a short visit at Children's Hospital. My family had so much support from friends, other family in the community. Even though we had so much support, I felt like I was alone. I should have been getting the support from my own mother, but she couldn't leave my sister's side at the hospital. I felt forgotten. I was trying to give my other siblings support when I thought like I didn't have anyone to support me. I felt selfish even though I shouldn't have. Crying in class every day, I didn't want to be anywhere but home, wishing that my mom and sister were with me. Not being able to physically move from the hurt that I felt drained. My mental health was declining so much. I lost interest in the people and things I loved so dearly. I was miserable. Finally, 2 weeks later, getting the call that my sister was awake felt like my heartbeat got back to normal again. I showed everyone pictures with pure joy on my face that my sister was awake. 2 days before Christmas, they came back home. Everything was going okay until one night my sister felt like she suddenly couldn't breathe. My mother rushed her back up to the hospital. They found out later she had built up scar tissue in her trachea from being on the ventilator for so long and getting so immune to the drugs that she was on. She would wake up and move around in a panic. My sister has had around 15 surgeries on her trachea since. One day my mom was looking on the scab on the back of my sister's head, and when I saw everything from the parade came back to my mind, the images of that day happening over and over and over again, it brought back all the pain and anxiety. I laid in bed alone, crying because I couldn't sleep. I was back to the beginning where I would cry all night. The images were so vivid in my mind. My mom called me upstairs and held me in her arms. The next day, my uncle explained what PTSD was like. As the air gets thicker and my chest feels like it's getting smaller, I realize that this is just the beginning of a long and terrible road. I easily jump at little things. I have panic attacks every time I cross the street. I hate fireworks for the reason that they make me cry. Still to this day, the sound of tires screeching sends me into a panic as I look for my siblings. The pictures come racing back to my mind, tears come racing down my face, and as I see as everyone is okay except for me. The pain is still sitting with me, the visions are always there to jump back at different times. It's been hard to be the oldest sibling, having to feel like I need to manage the house and deal with my own mental strain while my mother is constantly gone dealing with my sister's medical care. That one incident turned my life upside down, and life hasn't been the same since. Most importantly, I just want to thank everyone who was there for my family and supported us unconditionally at the time my family was needed most. And for you, Darrell Brooks, I hope you know I've never had so much hate for someone until I met you. Everyone's saying that they wish Wisconsin had the death penalty for you. I simply disagree because you do not deserve a simple death. Those 6 people who passed did not have a simple death. I hope you sit and suffer every minute of your day. Thank you.
Absolutely. You absolute monster. I'm so ready for this sentencing.
I'm Jocelyn Torres, victim HH, in life after November 21st, 2021, will never be the same.
Man, that is just...
I was dancing with the Waukesha Extreme Dance Team, a team I loved and committed countless hours to. 2 weeks after the parade, I woke up in the hospital, confused, uncomfortable, and in pain.
It's alright, you got it.
I remember doctors telling my mom that I needed to have a major surgery to fix my pelvis that was broken in 3 places, so I'd be able to walk again and dance again. I was nervous, scared, and I just wanted to be with my family again. After my surgery, my doctor told me that I had to be in a wheelchair until my pelvis was healed. When I got in my wheelchair, I felt stuck, trapped in a place that I just wanted to get out of. When I got to see my sisters and brother for the first time ever since the parade, I could just see the weight lifted off their shoulders when they saw me. I was not okay, but I was there. When I finally got home, after a month of being in the hospital, it was non-stop appointments and physical therapy.
2 days after I got discharged from the hospital, I had to go back for an emergency surgery because I couldn't breathe. We found out that being on the ventilator caused scar tissue to build around my trachea.
Oh no, this is the actual sibling that was in the hospital. Alright.
For 15 surgeries on my trachea since then. My mom had to help me with all my personal care and other needs, including showering, getting dressed, using the bathroom, doing my hair, and making my food until I learned how to get around easier. I had to go to physical therapy to learn how to walk again. When I started using a walker, I felt embarrassed and that people were just staring at me. I remember wanting to dance again, being with my team again, but knowing that I couldn't physically dance. I had to reteach my body to move how it used to move. Learning how to dance all over again. My balance was off, making dancing impossible at first. But the mental pain was worse, as I couldn't watch my teammates dance without me. I missed over half of the school year. When I got back to school, I felt uncomfortable being in a wheelchair. I felt like people were just looking and wondering. I missed out on my last year and days at elementary school, time and memories that I will never get back. This past summer, I had to go in for my second major surgery. The surgery was on my trachea, called a trachea resection. The doctors decided to do the surgery because I still couldn't breathe after all my procedures. My throat wouldn't stay open, and it closed up to 80%. I was basically breathing through the size of a drinking straw. Now I have a scar across my neck that stands out and won't ever go away, and a scar where I had surgery to fix my pelvis, and multiple other scars from the horrific things that happened that night. My scars make me insecure of my body, and that I can't wear regular swimsuits because I can feel people's eyes on me. When I wear shorts, I have lumps sticking out, and my scars will be there forever. So I will every day be reminded of what happened to me. Beyond my original month in the hospital, I missed out on my entire summer because I was recovering from surgeries. When I went home, I wasn't able to do normal 11-year-old things. I wasn't able to swim, jump, go on rides at fairs. All I could do was watch. Watch people have fun during their summer. Watch people play during their summer. While I continued to watch. I had to act like it didn't bother me because I didn't want to ruin summer for everyone else. Now I am 12 years old in 6th grade. I'm happy that I'm at a new school with new people. Now people won't treat me differently because they don't know my medical past. Now that I'm in 6th grade, I have to ride the bus. I hate going to the bus stop because it scares me whenever cars drive by me or make noises. I'm also dancing again. I do 2 3-hour practices each week. And this past weekend, I had my first dance competition, which was a big deal to me because this was my first competition in a year now. I still have appointments and procedures on my trachea to see how everything is healing. I also got cleared from physical therapy. I've gotten really far this year. It is getting closer and closer to November 21st, and I don't think I'm ready for this day to come. On this day each year, I and many others will think how a peaceful event that has been a tradition in Waukesha for over 50 years and brought smiles and laughter to everyone turned into tragedy. I want to say thank you to my coach Alyssa for proving to me that I can do anything I put my mind to. Thank you to Miss Hanson for helping me write my statement when I didn't know how to put everything into words. Thank you to all the doctors and nurses who took care of me in the hospital. And most important, thank you to my mom who was by my side for the whole tragic journey. Thank you for listening.
I don't know how I'm not crying right now. I've cried throughout so many of these. The last one that I was editing, while I was editing, I was crying. Oh my goodness, Darrell, I hope wherever you are, you're getting punched repeatedly in the face. When they put the camera on him, I can't stand. I can't stand when they put the camera on him. I wish they would just hold it on Judge Darrell or the prosecution or just the wall. Just hold the camera on the wall. Sometimes they show the clock before they go off for a break. Anything else? Do not speak. Do not try to speak. I thought he was going to try to say something to Judge Darrell.
Hi, I'm Amber, mother of Jocelyn Torres. I've been very open all this time about the injuries my daughter has obtained the night of November 21st, 2021. I even created daily logs so people could stay informed on her condition. But I've never truly talked about my feelings and how that day has affected my family. So this will be a very hard one for me. Let me put picture one. The event started off joyous, and I had 4 of my children with me that evening, all of which still suffer in some form to this day. The screams, the sounds of the people being hit, watching as their bodies flew, the visions of their bodies lying everywhere, and me yelling, searching for Jocelyn, still replays over and over in my head. I found my daughter lying in front of the music truck, nowhere near the rest of her teammates, in the middle of the 5 points with her clothes ripped from her body, road rash everywhere, blood leaking out of the corner of her mouth and half of her face missing. Picture 2. My poor child was ripped out of her shoes, drug under the front end, and thrown out from that vehicle. There was no ambulance, no medical equipment, nothing to help me and my child. I have never felt this helpless in my life. All I could do was hold my child and tell her Mommy was here and that she will be okay. Picture 3. A deputy and an officer came to help get my daughter on top of the blankets that were covering her naked body and drove us to the hospital in the back of an SUV. I am grateful for the actions they took that day, along with all the others who ran out into the street to help my daughter. When we got to Children's Hospital, I sat there in a chair numb as I watched multiple doctors, nurses, and medical staff rush in and out of the room examining my child's lifeless body. My mental state was confused. I lost who I was, and I felt like I was sitting in the middle of some crazy movie scene where there was so much commotion around you, but you hear none of it. I stayed numb from then on. It was my coping mechanism. There was no way to prepare myself for the news I was about to hear from the medical staff. Her injuries included a fractured skull, a hematoma behind her eye, 8 broken ribs, which was 4 on each side, bilateral lung contusions, 3 fractured lumbar vertebrae. Her bowel was damaged, her kidney was ripped from its blood supply and was dying.
Jeez.
She now only has 1 kidney left. Her liver was lacerated, her pelvis broken in 3 areas, going from front to back and down the middle in the shape of a T, and in 2 areas on the back side. Her spine has a permanent curve in it. Severe road rash all over her body. Pictures 4 or 5. Go to 5, please. That's her backside from being drugged. Go to the next one, please. That's the other side of her backside from being drugged. Next one, please. That's her leg. A whole chunk of meat was missing from her leg. You can take those down, please. She was given multiple bags of blood and platelets as we were transferred to the 4th floor ICU for critical care. It was there that the doctor sat me down and explained how she needed to be intubated because of the extensive damage to her lungs and body. The hardest moment of my life was making the phone call to my children. The hardest moment of my life was making the phone call to my other children so they could tell their sister how much they loved her, because I had no idea what was to come next. They were so confused and scared, and I could hear the hurt and pain in their voices. And I had no explanation to give them other than just tell your sister how much you love her. I couldn't be there to hold them while they cried in a time that they needed me the most. I still hold so much guilt because I couldn't be there with them, since I had to be with their sister, whose life was uncertain at the time. They were also mentally and emotionally traumatized. There were so many times I just wanted to hold Jessalyn or lay in the bed next to her, but I couldn't, since there were tubes coming from every direction, and her hands were tied down to the bed. The most I could do was hold her hand, stroke her head, and whisper in her ear, "I love you, and Mommy is here." I believe it was day 2 when we spent 3 to 4 hours just to thoroughly clean out all of the road rash, and it took multiple attempts to get as much of the leaves, sticks, and rocks out of her hair. There were so many sleepless nights. Every day there were new issues: high fevers, allergic reactions, sepsis, and monitors that were blaring and alarming because her stats were up and down constantly. I felt like I just could not catch a break. She was not easy to keep sedated, and there were so many wrestling matches to keep her as still as possible. It was all so exhausting, but yet I had to hold it all together. I had to be the rock. I hated watching the machine they used to help clear out her lungs. It was similar to a nebulizer, but had a force so strong, and it was so loud. It would pump the meds in and jostle her whole body. Just hearing how loud the machine was and watching her body being uncontrollably shaken was overwhelming, but it had to be done to clear all the fluid and mucus buildup from all the damage that you caused to her lungs. The time we were trying to wean her off the ventilator, I sat and watched the machine, hoping this girl would start to breathe on her own and not rely on the machine to do it for her. It took days and many trials. I would get my hopes up, and then they would be let down. I would talk to her. "Come on, Jessa, you have to breathe above the machine. You can do it, and I believe in you." Until finally I realized she wasn't ready. I just let her know it was okay, and I'm here by your side, and when you are ready, I will still be here right next to you by your side. I had so many mixed emotions the day Jessalyn was extubated. I couldn't wait to hear her voice again, to hug her, and to tell her how much I missed her. It felt like my girl was being reborn again. But I was not expecting the new hardships to come. She has had a total of 18 surgeries. Her first major surgery was to fix her pelvis. 12 hours my child was gone away from me that day. She now has a metal plate with 11 screws holding her pelvis together for the rest of her life. Picture 8, please. It took months for her to start to walk again. I never imagined that at 11 years old, we would be celebrating the first time she sat up or stood, and of all things, take out a tube feeding. You can go to picture 9. How does that look for sitting up? Does she look happy? I don't think so. Weaning off the narcotics and dealing with the hallucinations she had was terrible. She was so mean at times, and it hurt more than you could imagine on this inside, but I knew that that wasn't my child. Deep down, I was so angry, frustrated, and wanted to scream. So I'd just step out of the room and cry a little, take a deep breath, and walk back into that room stronger than I was before. You can take that down. Discharge day was so exciting and scary. I could finally see my 2-year-old, my other children, and be comfortable in my home. But managing all of Jessalyn's medical appointments, medications, daily shots, and personal needs on top of caring for 4 other children was difficult. Her dignity was taken away as I had to do everything for her for personal cares. And what 11-year-old wants her mom to wash their bottom? She would get frustrated trying to use both the wheelchair and a walker, and half the time she would forcefully shake that walker around and toss it off to the side. And having to load and unload her wheelchair, walker, and medical equipment took about 30 minutes in the freezing cold. The first day I had to take Jessa and my 2-year-old out was rough. When backing out of the driveway, I ran over her walker and broke it. I laugh now, but yep, I forgot to put it in the car. I sat there in disbelief, laughing and crying all at the same time. I was a mental wreck. We ended up back at Children's Hospital a couple of days after discharge when Jessalyn was struggling to breathe. Found out she was suffering from tracheostenosis from the initial prolonged intubation. You do picture 10. That was the hole she was trying to breathe through. About the size of a straw, a little bit smaller. 80% of her trachea was closed off. You can go to picture 11. That's the size they had to pop it open to, just so that way she could actually breathe. You can turn that off, please. I slept on my couch for months because her breathing was so bad that I was scared she would stop breathing in her sleep. 15 surgeries on her trachea before we made the decision to do a tracheal resection. I hated the thought of doing this major surgery, the thought of possibly opening her chest to lift the chest muscles to give more stretch to the trachea, or the possibility of injuring her vocal cords, along with all the other risks. They were also very overwhelming. We only get one breathing tube, and if this major surgery wasn't successful, then she would end up with a hole and a tube in her neck for the rest of her life to breathe from. Justin and I both cried together after that doctor left the room. How do you mentally prepare yourself or even your child for this type of news? Telling her that she would be asleep and intubated for another 2 weeks and in the ICU, and then eventually go home once we did the whole removing the tube, feeding, sitting, standing, walking, and everything all over again. We were all going back to square one. She was so calm that day when she left the room for her surgery, but I knew she was freaking out on the inside. She held herself together so well. And I remember her looking at me saying, "Mom, why are you crying?" as I let the silent tears roll down my face. That surgery took 6.5 hours. I stared out windows and paced for hours, hoping for the best outcome. On day 2 after that surgery, a lobe of her lung collapsed. She was running fevers and she was retaining too much fluid. We continued for days with her vitals going sky high, then dangerously low, fevers up to 104, and she became septic all over again. It was day 4 through the night when everything became beyond scary. Her body swelled in a matter of hours, and scans came back showing that she had pneumatosis intestinalis and necrotizing enterocolitis. And she was almost rushed down for an emergency bowel resection, as this had become life-threatening extremely fast. There was no real understanding as to why this was happening, other than that her intestines were not fully healed from the parade incident. Her body was shutting down. 9 days she spent on the ventilator. A total of 12 in the ICU and more on the main floor. It was another full 2-week stay at Children's Hospital. 2 weeks of mental and emotional upset and 2 weeks away from my other children. And if you are sitting here thinking that being taken off the ventilator is all pretty rainbows and butterflies, you're wrong. It's nothing like what you see on TV. Go ahead. Yep.
This absolute freak, man. This dude is... Him looking at the pictures and videos just disgusts me.
That is trauma. I can't.
I know that is traumatizing, isn't it? It is traumatizing. It's okay though. You're doing great, right? Yeah. Get you some oxygen.
I can't.
You can't. No, you just breathe. No.
Just breathe.
She struggled to breathe and cough up all that mucus for hours. Hours. Her mental state was off as she thrashed around and freaked out as the nurses were adjusting her bed, screaming, "Mom, help! Help me, Mom, they're going to shock me back to life." She thought that she was dying and that they were going to kill her. I knew that she had some worries before that surgery, but to this extent was beyond belief. We had to give her meds to calm her, as her thrashing around was our biggest fear, as that could tear her trachea all over again. Even on all those drugs, isn't it funny how she can still express how traumatizing this has all been? The summer went on with more appointments, physical therapy, surgeries, activity restrictions, weaning off on narcotics that made her so mean to the point that I had to step away and do that silent cry again. We tried to find a little happiness in every event that we could. It was hard for her to watch her teammates who were all back dancing. She cried because she wanted to go watch the state competition but couldn't since she had to be in another surgery. We felt left out and alone as we were still dealing with major medical issues months later. When out in the public, people would gawk, make hand gestures, and make comments about the scars across her neck. Number 13. Along with the marks and lumps on her body. Kids are cruel and have made some really harsh comments to the point I have felt the surge of uncontrollable anger. She was tired that day. At fairs and festivals, Jesselyn wasn't able to ride rides because of the possibility of tearing her trachea. You can take it down. She was so sad and angry, more angry than sad. Her friends and family were having a blast while she was standing, watching. My heart hurt for her. I had to talk her through the anger over and over and over and teach her how to find happiness in everything we do, no matter how big or how small. But she was right. It wasn't fair. She shouldn't have had to suffer. Not one person should have had to. My heart was broken the day she purposely stood out in the sun because she wanted the scars off of her face.
I'm sorry to pause real quick. I don't know if you saw that. Looked like Judge Darrell actually rolled her eyes. I'll just replay that part over this. But for a split second, it looked as if Judge Darrell looked at Darrell and just rolled her eyes, which is understandable.
You can post it. My heart was broken the day she purposely stand out in the sun because she wanted the scars off of her face and wanted her beautiful brown skin back. I guess it made sense to her that tanning would help. While riding in the car, she will freak out when there is a squirrel in the road. A squirrel. Okay? A squirrel. She gasps, yells, and throws her arms out and hits me. While I'm calming her, I sit there and envision how I'm sure that that's the exact reaction she had right before she took your SUV to her chest. This is all just a small fraction of what we've all been through and what I've had to push through in the last year. You can take it down. Jesselyn still has ongoing medical care, more surgeries, more appointments, memory loss, pain in her hip, and permanent curve in her spine. I hate the comments she makes about whenever she feels her hardware in her hip. But my girl is a warrior. She is back dancing. She may not be at the skill level she used to be, but she has not given up. As a parent, I have held so much guilt for not protecting my child that day. I have sat there by my child when she was at her worst. I was there for every little step of progress, and I was there for every setback. I have cried. I have been angry. I have had to deal with fear, mental trauma, PTSD, exhaustion, frustration, defeat, loneliness, and anxiety attacks. There are days when I feel that SUV hitting my chest and can't breathe as if I am my daughter. I could feel her pain, and it was excruciating. There have been times where I felt justice wouldn't be served until he had to take that SUV to his chest, drugged, thrown, and left with his bare body in the middle of the street, exactly the same way he treated my child. This man has brought out such an ugly side of me I never knew existed. It's not your life on the line, Mr. Brooks, and it never has been. It was my child's life on the line that night, along with many others. And as much as you were hoping to get some sympathy, I have none to give. I'm glad I don't have to hear those words come from your mouth anymore. I guess you should have thought about all those children of yours that you don't get to hold before you decided to turn that corner and step on that gas pedal. And I hope the look on my daughter's face before you ran her over haunts you for the rest of your life. Your immature behavior of rolling your eyes and twirling your fingers doesn't bother me. I have fought through one of my biggest fears this past year, and I won. I am much stronger than you. I have found my peace. This man may have been able to turn my life upside down and almost take my daughter from me, take time away from my other children, create such heartache, pain, and mental turmoil, but the one thing he was not successful at was taking my strength. Jesselyn's strength, along with the strength I have instilled in all my other children. He doesn't get the satisfaction of thinking we have become weak. My family has grown stronger, have become closer, and now have a better appreciation for the time we have together. He did not, cannot, and will not break me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesselyn is an absolute warrior, just like she said. It's crazy how that's what I was going to pause to say. I kid you not. I was going to pause immediately after that to say, dude, Jesselyn is a warrior. She fought through all of this and faced this dude to say everything that she dealt with. That, oh man. I don't have words to describe these things. I don't have words to describe it. But I'm pretty sure Judge Darrell was rolling her eyes at him.
November 21st came around, I was excited to dance with all my best friends. Little did I know, that was the worst day of my life. That day changed my life forever. My family and my friends thought that was the last day they would have with me. I can't even imagine what everyone was going through while I was unstable, in a coma, with a brain injury that later led to me having to get part of my skull taken out and put back in 2 months after. This major change in my life was all from the car that had struck me and many others on November 21st, 2021. I became worried and stressed because people treated me differently, and I saw myself as no longer strong, but weak. I didn't like that I could have a seizure. I lost my hair, and it made me feel bad about myself. This made a huge impact on my life. It changed the way my friends and family all see me now. I hated myself, and I hated what I had to go through. It was hell. I just want all the awful days in the hospital, trauma, all procedures to be put behind me so I can continue to live my life like all the days before the worst. November 21st, 2021. However, since I am a victim of the Christmas parade, this will always stay with me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As I stand here before you today, I realize that you don't know who I am. I have been here almost every single day since this trial started. I realize that what I am about to share will not change what happened that day, but I hope it will give me some sort of peace and help me continue to heal. The Waukesha Christmas Parade was an event that both of my daughters have been involved in for many years with their dance team. This year, on the day of the parade, it was very cold and windy, so instead of walking alongside the dancers, I decided to take on a new role. I volunteered to sit in the bed of the pickup truck that was leading our dance team. I was filling all the parent volunteer buckets with candy. I had the best view of my daughter the entire time. She was in the front row, dancing her heart out and doing what she loved most. In one split second, all of that happiness ended. Through the parade route, at an incredibly high speed, I saw your pickup truck approaching the girls. At that moment, no level of screaming could be heard because of the music playing in the background. The dancers did not see you coming, but I did. It was horrifying. These girls that I have become so close with, flying through the air, losing their shoes, their hats, and their gloves. A sight I will never be able to forget. This is a vision that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I jumped out of the pickup truck so fast, not knowing where my daughter's body had landed. Once I was able to locate her body, I took one look at her, and I thought she was dead. She was not moving. She had blood coming from her head, her ears, her nose, her arms and legs. She was not awake or responding. I was unable to keep my composure. With my shaking hands and through my tears, I somehow managed to call my husband. He had stayed home with our youngest daughter, who was homesick. If she had not been ill that day, she would have been dancing alongside her sister. I tried to explain to my husband what had happened, but honestly, I don't remember much after that. Meanwhile, a man, who I believe was a spectator at the parade, came to my aid as I was trying to explain to my husband over the phone what had happened. This good Samaritan also had to keep me away from my daughter, who was lying lifelessly on the ground. As her mother, all I wanted to do was pick her up and hold her. However, I was unable to because she needed medical attention. All of the injured girls from our team were being triaged right there in the middle of the street. I remember screaming out loud, asking what was taking so long for an ambulance to arrive. In hindsight, I realized it was only minutes, but during that moment, it felt like eternity. Everything just seemed to be moving in slow motion. Samantha was taken to Waukesha Memorial in the first ambulance that was able to get to us. She was later transferred to Children's Hospital because doctors realized that was the best place for her to be at the time, and due to the overwhelming amount of injuries from your reckless and thoughtless behavior, Waukesha Memorial needed more space for other hurt individuals. The other people that you carelessly hit. Thankfully, I was able to ride in the ambulance both times with my daughter, hoping and praying she would survive. Once at Children's Hospital, Samantha was taken for a second set of scans to evaluate what needed to be done. We quickly learned that she needed immediate surgery, where they would do a craniotomy to relieve the pressure from her brain swelling. When she came back from her emergency surgery, I lost it. She was intubated in a medically induced coma, and her head was wrapped in gauze. I just wanted to talk to her to talk to me so badly. I wanted to hear her voice and know that she was okay. At that moment, I would have done anything to switch places with her and take her pain away. Mr. Brooks, how could you possibly do this to someone? I need you to listen to me as I list her injuries. Acute respiratory failure, bradycardia, a skull fracture, multiple skull fractures, 5 fractures in different areas of her face, including the mastoid bone behind her ear, the bones that hold her eye into place, a fractured cheekbone, a brain bleed, an intracranial hemorrhage. Did you hear? The doctors told us that they did not know what the outcome of her injuries would be.
Too much of a coward.
They would not give us any false hope. They told us they did not know if she would survive. My husband and I did not know what the rest of her life would look like. If she survived, would she be able to walk? Would she be able to talk? We had no idea what the future would hold for Samantha. Our daughter was in a coma for 2 weeks in the critical intensive care unit at Children's Hospital. They needed to make sure that her brain was healing properly. Those were the hardest 2 weeks of my life. My husband and I lived at Children's Hospital, never leaving her side. We spent every hour of every day watching her body temperatures, her brain pressures, and the clock. We spent Thanksgiving at Children's Hospital, trying to find as much time to spend with our youngest daughter, who was not allowed to see her sister because of COVID restrictions. Weeks later, once medical personnel believed it was safe, she was slowly taken off her sedation meds. That was when her battle took a turn. Samantha is a fighter, and she was not about to let you destroy her life. Samantha had to learn how to swallow food. We spent weeks learning how to talk and walk again. Because of you, Samantha suffered a traumatic brain injury. She was unable to live a 14-year-old teenager's life. We struggle not knowing if or when she will have another seizure. Because of you, my daughter had her most beautiful hair shaved off. After spending 22 days in Children's Hospital, she was finally discharged. Finally being home with both my children was far better than Christmas morning. Even though it's almost been a year since this tragedy, it's still so painful to see her struggling with some everyday life experiences. I consider Samantha a gift. Based on the injuries she sustained from being hit by her vehicle, she should have died that day. But she didn't. And for that, I am so grateful. My heart goes out to those families who were not as fortunate. Since the first day you appeared in this courtroom, you have done nothing but make a mockery of this trial. I sat here every day listening to you act like this was just a game and showing no remorse for what you did. I have no forgiveness in my heart for you. You said as a father it hurt because you could not hold your babies.
Why is he acting as... I'm sorry, I'm pausing in the middle of this. I literally just said I wouldn't do it. Why is he acting as if he has to collect himself? He was too much of a coward when she acknowledged, hey, listen to these injuries that you caused to my child. Do you hear me, coward? Of course not. He sits there, puts his head down to try to imagine... Oh God, I don't even want to think about whatever he's imagining to get through this moment.
But yet you run over my child like she didn't mean anything. What kind of father does that? Because of you, our lives have been changed forever. Whatever pain you may encounter in prison will only be a fraction of what Samantha endured after this tragedy. Judge, we ask that you give Mr. Brooks the maximum sentence for each count without the chance of parole. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, man.
I'm just gonna check, we may have one more.
Okay, we may have just gotten through everyone. I hope I didn't just hear him speak right now. Really hoping this day ends without him saying another word. Or him just being tackled as soon as he speaks. Maybe the bailiffs will just tackle him and do whatever they please.
We have one more statement.
Okay, we got one more.
Hi. Oh, I left my pictures in the hallway. Can I grab my pictures? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for watching along. I truly, truly do appreciate it. I saw someone acknowledge this has been a series for a couple of years now. I really didn't know that it's been that long. I know it's at least been over a year. But thank you to everyone for watching along with me. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, one at a time. There's just two.
And I know there's a big storm that's coming by the way too. I hope that everyone's staying safe out there.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I'm nervous. I forgot that I'm in the hallway. This is our daughter, Olivia. She is the baby of our family. That photo was taken on November 21st, 2021. At that time, she was an innocent 8-year-old who was excited to get to perform in the parade with her best friend and her teammates, and it was something she looked forward to every year. My mother-in-law and myself and I also join her every year and hand out candy, and it's something that's become, I guess, a tradition that was taken away from us by Darrell Brooks because of his selfless, just ability to have. Please don't do that. It's so disrespectful. I've watched all day on TV, and I've watched you mock all of the victims all day. You roll your eyes and you make faces. If this was your 8-year-old daughter that someone else hit, you would have been beside yourself if someone made those faces. And you want people to have forgiveness for you and your child? You're insane. I hope that the judge puts the most amount of years on your sentence, and I hope that you live in hell for the rest of your life for what you have done to all of these victims. Do you realize after you hit me and my mother-in-law, I spent 5 minutes walking around looking for my daughter on the ground? I was looking for her through little girls that were keeled up in little fetal positions because you had ran them over. You hit them with 3,300 pounds. And you don't care. Right before you hit me, I turned around and I looked at you. I didn't see your car. I saw the look in your eye. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. And that was because you are a narcissistic piece of shit that thinks you can get away with everything. And you are not going to ever get away with anything ever again. You did what you wanted to do, which was instill fear and horror in all of these children that are involved. You're a child killer, a woman killer. I cannot wait until somebody inflicts that harm on you. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Do you want to show pictures of Olivia?
That's Olivia, and the next one is my daughter in the hospital room where I sat next to her for 5 days where she didn't move. My daughter who was in the ICU for 5 days. And in children's for an additional 9 more in the critical care unit because of her brain injuries that you caused to her, that she still deals with daily. I was late because I couldn't leave her because she didn't want me to leave because of her separation anxiety that you caused. You should not be allowed to be a father to your children. I'm so glad that you are being kept from them. The shit you would teach them would make them as evil and miserable as a person that you are.
My goodness, she's saying everything. She's saying everything that we've all been thinking. I know she's saying it in a fit of rage, and just like the coward that we all knew that he was, he sat through this trial and he screamed at the top of his lungs as if he is some kind of like monster, right? He screams as if he has so much power and the ability to do anything to anyone. Look at what a coward he has become right now. This is him in his natural state. What we see right now, him sitting quietly and looking to the side. Look at this. He's got his eye to the side. He can't even face her. This is what Darrell Brooks is, forever will be. I don't know if I've ever been this angry before. It's not even about me. Let's just keep it going. I've never been this angry, though. I don't think I have.
Victim FF and her daughter, victim GG, or maybe I mixed up the designation, but that's FF. Does anyone else want to make a statement?
I believe that was GG for your daughter's FF.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that concludes the statements, Your Honor.
I didn't even know that was the end. If I would have known,
Attorney Opper, it's 4:56. Do you want to make your statements yet tonight?
Whatever the court wishes, Your Honor. I probably have about 15 minutes worth of comments, but...
How many?
About 15, I would say.
I'd like to have you conclude tonight. I just want to take just a short break before we do that. I think we all could use probably a short comfort break and a stretch break, and then we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes to hear your remarks.
Oh my goodness, that was beautiful. So as soon as somebody actually challenges him, says anything back to him, all of a sudden his hands are up like this. Whoa, I'm not upset. Why are you? Like, he's done that so many times, this gaslighty way of dealing with people. But the moment that he gets the same energy, he's a quiet little clown. The show is paused for some reason. But I'm so glad she got him. I didn't even see it because whenever they put him on the screen, I don't want to look at him. But he's doing this as she's talking, like, come on, hurry up. Yeah, let's get you in the cell quicker, bud. You're exactly right. But look, I'm gonna go ahead and skip. I'm doing a lot of talking. Okay, we're back. I'm glad Darrell will not be a father to his children as well. I hope they are raised by much more competent men, and, you know, I just really hope that they're raised by much more competent parents. And it's not difficult to be that. Look at who they're being compared to. Okay, the sound went back off. Okay.
Back on the record then. And Attorney Opper, you may provide the court with your sentencing recommendation.
Thank you, Judge. Obviously, I'm very grateful to the court for its patience in listening to all of these victims here today. It was very, very important that you hear from them directly, and the stories that they shared with you, really very personal and very compelling as to the impact that this crime had on so many people on so many levels. The focus of my comments, Your Honor, will briefly speak as to Darrell Brooks and his prior history, because I think it's important there's a record of that. But I don't intend to spend a lot of time on Darrell Brooks, because I think what's already been said is the most important message that I'd like this court to think about overnight as you consider your options here. I will tell the court as to Mr. Brooks' prior record. The court is aware from the bail jumping charges he's pending on several felony counts in Milwaukee County. 21 CF 5020, he's charged with intimidation of a victim, that being Erica Patterson.
Big
and
surprise.
Felony bail jumping with an offense date of November 8, 2021. He's pending on case number 21 CF 4596 with an offense date of November 2 of 2021. Charged there with resisting, obstructing, felony bail jumping, second-degree recklessly endangering safety, domestic battery, and domestic DC. That is the case where he is alleged to have struck Erica Patterson in the face with a closed fist after an argument, and then as she was walking away, intentionally ran her over with the same 2010 Ford Escape that he used in this attack. When the police went to his mother's home and found him there, he was in the Ford as they approached. He got out and tried to run into the house. He ignored their commands to stop. He tried to flee and eventually was apprehended. He lied to them and said he was not driving the Ford SUV that day, even though there was evidence to the contrary. That case is pending in Milwaukee County. He was released on $1,000 cash bail in that case on November 19th of 2021. There's a third file pending, 20 CF 2550. The charges are 2 counts of second-degree reckless use of a weapon, felon in possession of a firearm. The date of violation is July 24, 2020. He was released on cash bail in that case in March of 21. In that case, the allegation is that he got into a fight with his nephew, and as his nephew was leaving the area, the defendant fired 1 shot from a handgun toward the vehicle that his nephew was in. The vehicle was occupied by 1 other person, and therefore he was charged with 2 counts. The next day, he was taken into custody, and a loaded Beretta 9mm handgun was located just a few feet away from him. That handgun had previously been reported stolen. I believe he has court on those files later this week in Milwaukee County, Your Honor. As far as convictions are concerned, there's a 2012 conviction from May 15th, 2012. Resisting obstructing misdemeanor in Milwaukee County, sentenced to 30 37 days jail consecutive to any other sentence. 4/23 of 2012, there were 2 files disposed of in Milwaukee County. One of them charged misdemeanor bail jumping and possession of marijuana. He was sentenced to 180 days in the House of Correction on both counts concurrent.
Didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that.
There was another file for felony possession of THC as a second or subsequent offense. He was also sentenced to 180 days in the House of Correction for that file.
I'm sorry, what was the conviction for?
Felony possession of THC as a second or subsequent offense.
Thank you.
On April 30, 2010, he was convicted in Wood County of strangulation/suffocation with other charges for battery and criminal damage to property dismissed and read in.
Okay, while I'm already around the time that I just accidentally paused, but listen to the types of things that he has already been charged for. It's nothing but aggressive stuff. And I truly believe that day that he hit Erica with his SUV, that's probably where he got the idea to just continuously do this. I truly believe the seed was planted in his mind at that point. As soon as he did it that one time, he probably got such a rush out of it, he did it again. I'm so happy they're listing this stuff off. He's over there once again. I don't know what power he thinks rolling his eyes have. Darrell's entire defense throughout this whole thing is mostly eye rolling. So apparently he thinks that's what's going to get him out of this situation. Everything we're hearing right now, this is who you are at your core.
There was a withheld sentence for 3 years probation. Ultimately, it was revoked in 2011. And he was sentenced to serve 11 months jail. 2009 conviction from Manitowoc County for misdemeanor obstructing, sentenced to 2 days jail, time served. 2005 conviction from Langlade County. Actually, it was a county ticket for disorderly conduct. He never paid the fine on that, so he ultimately served 30 days jail. 2003 conviction in Milwaukee County for resisting obstructing, 20 days in the House of Correction.
How is he?
2002 conviction, Milwaukee County, felony possession of THC, second or subsequent offense, 50 days in the House of Correction. 2000, convicted of substantial battery, party to a crime, sentenced to prison, withheld, and 3 years probation imposed along with 6 months of condition time. That probation was ultimately revoked and he was sentenced
I was going
to
to
prison.
say, how is he not going to prison?
That's his record from
This
the state of
entire time.
Wisconsin. He has a record from the state of Nevada. June of 2016, he was charged with a sex offender registry violation, failed to appear in court on that offense, and there is currently an outstanding warrant for his arrest active in the state of Nevada. 2007, he pled guilty to statutory sexual seduction as a felony. A suspended sentence was ordered for 36 months probation. That's what led to the sex offender registry requirement, which he is currently non-compliant with. In December of 2006, there were 2 files disposed of in Nevada. One was domestic battery as a misdemeanor. He received a suspended sentence. And the other, he was found guilty at trial of obstructing, misdemeanor, and sentenced to jail. In the state of Georgia, he has a conviction from May of 2021. I'm sorry, not a conviction, an arrest from May of 2021 for misdemeanor battery, domestic violence. The disposition of that case is unknown. And of course, there's paternity action that was pending here in Waukesha County that had been a warrant or capias had been issued for him on at least 8 occasions during the life of that file. That's a 2003 case. He was sentenced to jail on several occasions for failing to pay child support. He was once allowed Huber privileges on a jail sentence, but had those Huber privileges revoked in 2009.
How is this possible?
Most recently, there was a warrant issued in August of 2021, and Judge Maxwell signed an order to lift a stay of a 120-day jail sentence.
How is this even possible? I've heard the term getting a slap on the wrist before. How is it possible he's done this many things? And then it's spread out too. It's in like different states. So literally wherever he goes, he is a menace. I have no idea how he has not gotten like a life sentence within all of this. Everything that they're saying he's done, it's all like violent stuff. So I have no idea how he never got like 20 years somewhere within there. 10 years, 15, like I don't know how he's gotten around it.
That is the extent of his criminal history that we are aware of, Your Honor. I think it's very plain on its face. He's a lifelong criminal. He is someone who has repeatedly, continuously disobeyed law enforcement based on the resisting, obstructing type charges. There's multiple counts of bail jumping, disregarding court orders, disrespecting court orders. There's multiple acts of violence. There's weapons violations. This man has a history and a pattern of engaging in violent, dangerous behavior in the community. And it was no different on November 21 of 2021. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the attack. And I choose to call it an attack instead of referring to it as the parade, as somebody mentioned. There's nothing wrong with the parade. The parade is good. The parade is the embodiment of a community. That's what you expect to see at a parade, is children at a parade, families, people from all over the area coming together for a joyful, happy event. The parade will continue. It will kick off again in a few short weeks. And I hope and pray there's joy and laughter and kids in the street collecting candy. That's what it should be. So I'm not going to refer to this case as the parade. I'm going to refer to it as what it was, an attack. And the facts are very clear, Your Honor. Very few of the victims who were struck had any idea this car was barreling down on them. It's an act of a coward, plain and simple. They had no way to know it was coming. And he mowed over them and ran them over without any ability to defend themselves. What is so offensive about this conduct, Your Honor, is obviously the violent nature of it. But even more so, the defendant's conduct and behavior in this court, his complete lack of regard for the decorum of the court, the respect of the court. And I don't mean you personally, of course you deserve that as well, but I mean for the sanctity of the court, the courtroom, the process that we as Americans respect and treasure and protect for well over 200 years, and he can't engage in the most civil behavior as being quiet when another person speaks. Many, many people came into this courtroom over the course of the trial and the proceedings. Every one of them was able to sit and obey the court's order. If you ask them to stand up, they'd stand up. If you asked them to sit down, they'd sit down. If you told them court's in session, be quiet, they all would. Everyone was able to do that except Darrell Brooks. I think he was able to do it. I just don't think he wanted to. I just think this is all part of his charade. This referring to himself in the third person, trying to distract him or detract himself, I should say, from the events, taking absolutely no responsibility. It's the act of a narcissistic coward. Those words have been used here today, and nothing could be further from the truth. He is a coward. He ran like a scared little chicken from this parade, trying to slither away in the dark of night but only to stop long enough and try and take advantage of good citizens that would help him. He calls and lies to his mom, right? Get me an Uber. I can't get into it. He lies to the officers repeatedly.
You like that description, Darrell?
We saw the time of his arrest.
Coward.
We heard the testimony from Daniel Ryder, a good man with good intentions and a good heart, who took this murderer into his home and held him there long enough for the police to come and take him away without any knowledge whatsoever of what had gone on. He takes advantage of everyone. He's extremely manipulative. He absolutely thinks he's in control of everything, when in fact, as he sits here in custody, he's in control of nothing except for his own behavior.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
Except for
I'm not
his...
going to sit here and be disrespected.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
We don't
I'm
care.
not going
You'll
to sit
have
here
your
and be disrespected.
opportunity. These are sentencing arguments and they can make them.
So I could do the same thing?
Mr. Brooks, there's nothing disrespectful. They're doing it in
Yes,
a
it is.
respectful
Okay,
way.
call me out of my name again.
Nothing will happen. Absolutely nothing will happen. Continue, please.
Judge, these are the facts. You heard from so many of these parents and so many of the people that were there of that fight or flight, right, that kicked in. He ran. He fled. He tried to protect his own self. That's it. That's all he did. Everybody else sprang into action, whether that action was to immediately account for their for their family and get them out of there to safety, whether it was good Samaritans. And Judge, I really thought long and hard. I had a video clip that I was perhaps going to show to you. You've seen a lot of this during the trial, but I mean, it comes from the clip when I showed during my closing argument near the end of the parade route where the Catholic community had been struck and all the shoes laying in the road and things like that. That person that took that video walked down Main Street for quite some time and captured quite a few images, and it's really quite powerful, but I also thought it's really quite painful. But one of the things that was just so remarkable to us as we watched things like that was the average citizens that just sprung into action to save somebody else. There was a particular moment where there's a person on the ground fervently performing CPR on a victim in amongst a pool of blood without any regard for themselves whatsoever. I don't know who this person was. I don't think I'll ever know. But it's a prime example of the good that came out. So many people talked this afternoon about good versus evil, and I definitely believe that's what this case was about. Darrell Brooks is the epitome of evil. He is evil in
Another
person.
courtroom, please.
No, you may not.
The community is
May I have
good.
the order
The
of the court
people
so
are
I can
good.
I think it'd be
The
best for me to
victims
just go
are
into the
good.
other
Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks, I'm talking.
I don't care about you talking.
I don't care what you care about.
I know you don't.
Sit down and be quiet.
Nah.
Everybody has told you that. Stop it.
See, you got it all wrong, Miss Opper.
Judge, the community has spoken. This jury returned a verdict in 2 hours. That's how open and shut this case was.
Well, actually, it was
Everybody saw it. Everybody but Darrell Brooks. This jury deserves to be commended for their conduct, their
God bless you,
patience,
though.
their
God bless you.
service.
Mr. Brooks,
I asked to go to the other courtroom.
I'm not
so we
sending you
wouldn't
there.
have- So we wouldn't have to go.
It's not, that is not a place you get to request to go to. It's
So
That's
I
when you
have to-
disrupt the proceedings.
I'm
She's
not
almost
trying to disrupt
done.
the proceedings. I'm trying to go to the other courtroom
No.
so she can finish saying the
I wanted-
BS she got to say.
I wanted to share something with you, Judge. This is something that came in on December 5th of 2021. An anonymous letter came, well, it's not anonymous, it's signed, but it's from a person we don't know, from another state, from the state of Kansas. December 5 of 2021, this person took time out of her day to write a card it's addressed to the Waukesha community, and it was sent to our office. And she wrote, "We have been praying for the healing of your community. Please know that there are people who care deeply all over this nation. That's the kind of message Darrell Brooks needs to hear, because I know during the trial there was a lot of cards, a lot of messages received in my office and in your office. Good, hardworking, decent people that respect the law, that respect human life, that respect their neighbors, that would take the time to comment and say, good job. We support you. We are with you. And you saw that strength behind me all day. Those young kids, children, coming up.
Exactly.
I mean, Your Honor, I'll say this. God is good. There's been a lot of talk about God. There's been a lot of talk about religion. Darrell Brooks brought the Bible into this courtroom.
Every day.
These children are remarkable for their strength, for their healing, their physical healing. We haven't met these kids before. We've never met them. We met them today for the first time. You would never know the serious injuries that they suffered as a result of Darrell Brooks by looking at them. Of course, there's much healing to be done. But isn't it remarkable that in a year's time, look how far we have come as a community. Look how far these families have come. These families, these victims that stood up and pointed to Darrell Brooks and said, you will not beat me. You will not knock me down. That's what we need to move forward with as a community, Your Honor. His behavior is done. We're done with him. He has forfeited his right to be in this courtroom. He's forfeited his right to be in our community, period. There is not one thing that mitigates this sentence, not one. He deserves the absolute maximum sentence on all counts consecutive. Look, Judge, you saw the videos. This wasn't him plowing in to one large group of 50 people at one point in time and hitting them. It was linear. He hit one, kept going. Hit two, kept going. Hit three, kept going. All the way down the street. That's consecutive sentences, Your Honor. That's intentional, willful, volitional conduct that warrants consecutive sentences stacked one on top of the other, just as he stacked victims up as he drove down the road in complete disregard for any other person whatsoever. We kept the kids out of the courtroom in the trial, Judge, but boy, it's impactful to listen to them today and realize this isn't just, victim GG. This is a child that you willfully ran over with a 3,000-pound vehicle, as so many people so adeptly observed. Police officers, first responders, the medical professionals. It's kind of weird, Judge, because we're coming up on the anniversary, of course, and we're coming up on the weekend before Thanksgiving, which is a weekend that a lot of people pay attention to on the calendar because here in good old Wisconsin, it's deer hunting season. It's a lot of families going out, starting their Christmas activities, Christmas festivities, Christmas shopping, whatever it is. So it's kind of a weekend that comes around every year that on its own, it's not a holiday, it's not really a known day, but we all know that first weekend before Thanksgiving and what it brings. We all look forward to maybe a short work week, spending time with family, getting together. And here it comes, and it's the anniversary of this attack at the hands of Darrell Brooks. But we're going to have an ability to move on from that. We have...
This absolute clown just said it was an accident. I'm sorry, we're so close to the end of this. That was amazing. That was amazing. That little exchange where DA Sue Alfaro... She told him directly, you shut up and you sit there. I don't care about what you care about. You narcissist, you. We do not care, but okay, let's continue.
The ability, we have the tools as a community, Your Honor, to do that. And that's definitely because of everyone that responded to this incident, the first responders, the police officers, the medical personnel, that got paged in on a Sunday night when we're all hunkered down, Packers had played, it's cold, it's dark, and they all had to spring into action and respond. And there were law enforcement from all over southeastern Wisconsin, fire department, EMTs. No one paused, no one hesitated for a second. They just came and helped. And I think that's something that our families, our community can build on as well, Your Honor, to say evil is easily overcome here. Darrell Brooks deserved to be locked up for the rest of his life. He cannot be trusted ever, ever again. I ask you to consider, I'm not going to go into it, but we had filed the other act's evidence, some of the language in that other act's evidence, the intimidation of the victim. It played out repeatedly in this courtroom. He tried to intimidate you, he tried to intimidate me, he tried to intimidate the witnesses. He tries and tries and tries, but he fails. He's not the strongest person in the courtroom. He's the weakest person in the courtroom. Morally bankrupt. That's what he is. His character is void. I asked Attorney Basie, what's the word I can use for low character, and then we came up with the fact he really has no character. It's one of the factors the court needs to consider.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Protection of the public, severity of the crime, they all weigh heavily in a stacked sentence, Your Honor, consecutive maximum across the board. Every one of these victims deserves that. I don't know how we look at any of these victims and say, well, he got concurrent time on your case because your pain and suffering wasn't quite as bad as the guy before you or the girl before you. They all deserve that sentence that speaks to their count. The restitution, Your Honor, I filed the paperwork. We are seeking restitution in the dollar amounts from my letter that we reviewed this morning. I'm asking under 97320 sub 11 sub F that you enter an order that the Department of Corrections shall keep 50% of any wages Mr. Brooks may earn in prison and any monies that may be paid on his books or canteen account, and direct those monies to be paid directly towards restitution. He should not be able to work or receive canteen without paying down that restitution.
Absolutely.
I also included in my letter the request that should any monies ever be paid by contract to Mr. Brooks, that he should attempt to benefit financially from these crimes, that those monies would be placed into an escrow account maintained by the Department of Justice and paid towards the restitution. The restitution in this case is ridiculously low when you consider it, and that's again because of the generosity of good people all over the world that contributed to a community fund, and other individuals who generously donated to help these families pay for funerals and medical expenses and things like that. Can you imagine when you heard these mothers describing what their children have been through? Can you imagine the medical bills on these? And he's lucky he's getting off with a $200,000 bill for restitution, Your Honor. I think he should have to pay every last penny of it. I also wanted to wrap up again, Your Honor, by saying you didn't hear from all the victims. Child. Certainly, there were some that just cannot bring themselves to this court in any fashion, in any way. And we ask you to keep them in mind as well, especially the Bill Hospital family. Bill was, walking in support of his wife's team and trying to be in a supportive role, as he had done on many other occasions, and lost his life for that simple action, that simple act of good that he participated in. There were some groups that are not represented here today, but I know you heard their story at trial, and you're aware of what some of them went through that maybe wasn't specifically addressed here today, but I just ask you to keep in mind that we certainly presented a wide array of victims to you, but not everyone, and then certainly, as I mentioned at the outset, the community as a whole absolutely demands justice for these victims, these families, and for the community itself. That Darrell Brooks has no redeeming value, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brooks, as far as I can tell from the correspondence from your mom and from you, I believe there may be closer to 3 individuals plus yourself who wish to speak at sentencing. Since we lost an hour or so today, although we did go late, so arguably we gained it back, I still was thinking about starting at noon just to make sure there's ample time. I will start the Zoom shortly before that.
3
the
people.
information has been provided to your mother, and I believe she will provide it to the other individuals on your list who wish to attend and make a statement on your behalf.
I completely forgot there's somebody that's actually going to say Darrell did something good for them and that he's a good person. Surely it's somebody that just doesn't really know him and they had like a brief moment of, I don't know. Darrell is an opportunistic person. I'm sure him helping somebody was just in some way he was doing it so they could help him. That's the only way I could think of it, because in no way did he just help someone out of the kindness of his heart. So surely even this person, he's tricked them.
So right at noon, we will start that process. Typically, I would hear from the individuals on your behalf with you going last, but you tell me if you want it to go a different order.
That's fine.
All right, and then I'll hear from you. I may take a short break before I come back out, or even a longer break, depending on the timing of everything tomorrow, to just collect all of the final statements and process them. Obviously, I'll take the overnight to process what I've heard today, in addition to what I've already been doing on my own. And I haven't seen any written statements on your behalf. I don't know if anything came in today during this hearing, but I'll rely on the verbal statements that are made and then yours at the time of sentencing, or prior to me imposing sentencing, okay?
I apologize. It's very emotional and frustrating right now, so.
All right, end of day. Let's walk out.
I apologize to you, Your Honor, and court.
I understand it's frustrating.
Sure thing.
I understand that.
It's just very hard to sit and, you know, it's almost like a pile. So I still understand that I have to conduct myself respectfully, so I apologize.
I think the apology needs to be made to the victim, sir, more so than this court.
Definitely. I was just referring to
I know.
I'm so happy Judge Darrell can speak freely. Why are you apologizing to me, you idiot? Apologize to these families that you did this stuff to. But yeah, surely he has tricked someone to speak on his behalf.
All right, anything else from either party before we conclude for this evening from the state?
No, Judge.
Makes no sense.
From you, sir?
Not at this time.
All right, we are in recess. I'll see everyone tomorrow at noon. Thank you.
I have no words to describe this day even still. You know what's insane? He still doesn't get it. And that's what I was gonna say when I paused initially. And then he's talking about, oh, it just feels like it's a pile-on. Yeah, you ran over people with a, like, oh my goodness. It just further proves he should be locked away forever. Some way in his mind, he feels like he is a decent person. He can't tell you why, because after listening to his entire rap sheet of everything he's done, plus the way that he's acted throughout this whole trial, you can't really go based on what you've seen or even on paper, but somehow in his mind he's worked out he's a decent person. I'm sure Darrell thinks he's like the greatest guy in the world. This day was both heartbreaking and amazing only because we got to hear people say every single thing that we've realized about him throughout this whole entire trial. So look, God bless the families. families and the people as well that contributed to paying for the damages, as Sue Opper talked about. You know, a lot of people contributed. God bless every last one of them. I was going to say shout out to you, but I don't think that does it as full justice. Of course, shout out to you. But really quick, I want to say thank you to everybody for the prayers and well wishes for my mom. Surgery went amazing and she's doing good. So thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you did something good for somebody today. Hope somebody did something good for you, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.